Hello, Blenders, and welcome to episode number 243 of ReelBlend, a podcast that has 17 movies tied for 11th place. My name is Sean O'Connell, and on this week's show, it's our favorite movies of 2022. It's an end-of-the-year tradition that we love doing on this show, where we all get together, put our top 10 lists in order, and then within a month or so, forget what we put on them. But that's okay. It's still exciting when we're doing it in this week's show. Starting and joined, as always, by the boys, Jake Hamilton, a Fox 32 in Chicago, who is preparing for, is it fair to call it Thunder Snow?
I'm preparing for the perfect opportunity to watch The Thing and The Shining is what I'm preparing for, because we've got a big storm coming this way, and it should be fun. You know, the fun part about doing these top 10 lists, I have now discovered, is in a year we will do a really fun premium episode where we do a this or that between our top 10s from 2022 to 2021, which we spend a majority of that time going, oh my God, I put that at number 4. Oh my God, I put that movie at number 3, which again, I think lends to the perspective of like, and we say this every time, that these are just a snapshot of a moment. That's all they are.
And I love that we pit movies against each other. Like that's really
as the way God intended.
Fair. Yes, exactly. Yes. And by God, he means Kevin McCarthy of Fox 5 and NBC. Hi, Kevin.
Oh, by God, I mean Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, and the premium, and Jake is referencing a premium that we just recorded, which is great, about our 2020 to 2021. Is that out now, Gabe, as people are hearing this?
Yeah, that dropped actually today. That we're recording.
Today. All right, cool. So yeah, we're excited about that. Listen to that episode because we never really remember what's on our top 10s, and yeah, we had some pretty interesting discussions about that. Yeah.
But you know what makes me kind of sad is that I'm certain the last 2 years, Kevin and I have had the same number ones, and it's been a really nice, like, you know, like we were cuffed together in a relationship, and now I feel like we're breaking up because we have different number ones this year.
You know my 1 and 2?
I know your 1.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And it's not my 1.
Oh,
why isn't it?
Well, we'll get to it in a minute.
Should be all your number ones.
Gabe Kovac, who is chiming in as well too. Hi, Gabe.
Don't we do a ReelBlend top 5?
Well, why don't I throw it to Gabe for the rules of the show?
Yeah, we'll get there.
Gabe, do you want to do it now?
Well, let's get through housekeeping, and then we'll get into today's topic.
Okay.
Yep.
Hello, if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you very much for joining us. Head down, give us a like and a subscribe. Turn on your notifications every Friday. Join the notification crew as they listen to ReelBlend once it goes up around 7:30 Eastern time, or of course listen anytime you guys want to, wherever you get your podcast needs met. Kevin mentioned the premium episodes. Those drop on Monday. If you want to figure out how to sign up for ReelBlend Premium, which gives you an ad-free version of the show, an extra segment every Monday, as we mentioned, and a newsletter from me every other week. Check the description for the information on where to sign up. You guys know the drill. But this episode is going to be special, and Gabe has a couple of rules. It's not like a game. It's just this is how we're doing it.
First, let me finish housekeeping, which is
that's right.
We're very excited to get there.
Beautifully said, Sean. But next week is going to be all of that is irrelevant because we're taking a week off. So this is dropping on the 30th. That's when you folks are listening to this, or at least you're the first opportunity.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We are not going to have a premium episode drop on the Monday after this, and we are not going to have a full episode drop on the Friday after this. But we will be back with our first episode of the new year on the 13th, which is going to feature Tom Hanks.
I think it's going to be an all-time interview for ReelBlend.
It's going to be worth the wait, is what I hope. So I wanted to let the folks know up top rather than wait until at the end of the show. When you're hearing this, we're going to take some time off, and then we'll be back hot and heavy in January.
And as Jake joked, the guest list for the rest of 2023 is expected to go downhill fast.
We're going to phone it in.
If Nolan joins us for Oppenheimer, that's gone way up.
Do you think, okay, now I'll just get your opinion on this now, because when we got him for Tenet, it was a TV slot pair.
Yeah.
You think we're any closer to potentially getting him solo
in person
for a longer time?
I would. I mean, that would be like a dream.
That interview would be explosive.
Well, we'll ask the listeners at home to just send us good vibes throughout the year for that.
Are we switching to Oppenheimer at the end of the show now?
I don't know. We'll see.
Oh my God, Kevin! The wheels are turning in Kevin's mind.
Well, Sean, would you like me to get to it now? Should we get to our segment?
Yeah, sure. Let's get to it. Are you leading the way? How are we doing this?
You're leading the way, but I'm
throwing it to Gabe to set up the rules. That's what I'm doing.
So yes, we're gonna go through our top 10 list, which is gonna result in the show's top 5. I will just quickly go over how this is gonna work, and then I'll give it back to Sean for the segment itself. The way that it works, the discussion is gonna work. Each of these guys is we're gonna go 10 through number ones, and they're gonna reveal where they rank the films of this year. But we're gonna hold off on discussing films until we reach its highest point in the list. So for instance, if Kevin's number 10 is Jake's number 2, we'll wait until we get to Jake's number 2, and then everyone will get to discuss the film as they like. But at the end of this segment, when everyone goes through their lists, I have calculated up a score, and we have the top 5 films of this year according to ReelBlend. And it's interesting this year, is all I'll say, but you'll have to stay tuned. So Sean, take it away.
All right. Well, we're going to start with BDK, who is going number 10. Kevin, why don't you tell us what your number 10 pick is, and then I will let you know whether we're going to discuss it or hold it.
I wonder if I'm assuming this is not on either of y'all's lists, but I went with Clerks 3.
We are going to discuss it. Game on.
Right now?
Yeah.
Great.
Didn't make anyone else's list.
That's perfect. No, I mean, well, first of all, I mean, like it's been noted on this show that clearly I'm a big Kevin Smith fan, but growing up, like, when I saw Clerks and Clerks 2 and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, all those movies meant so much to me. So the ending of this film, I just found to be so deeply emotional. And there's a lot of great references to filmmakers that I love, but I just found the movie to be beautifully heartwarming. And I think Brian O'Halloran, his acting over the years from the first to the third, he has a monologue in this film that he gives in the store before something happens to the character. I won't say what it is, that I just thought was beautiful. And I thought that Kevin did a really good job with that scene in particular, kind of tiptoeing around it. Essentially, there's like a very important monologue he's giving. And because the movie's dealing with the idea that they're shooting the Clerks movie within Clerks 3, Kevin cuts back and forth between black and white, which is this idea of reality in film, and the idea that he always kind of saw Clerks in color, even though he shot the first in black and white. But I thought that monologue was just incredibly delivered, written. And I just love spending time with Dante and Randall. I really do. I love those characters. I love how much fun they have together. Also, like, at the end of the day, as raunchy as those films are, the friendship is really rooted in a grounded, beautiful reality of like two people who just live their lives together and go through the ups and downs of what their lives are. I think the Clerks films are a lot more. This is a lot more of a drama than the earlier two, even though the second one was definitely had some dramatic elements as well. So I just, as a Smith fan, I think the Clerks 3 it's not a perfect film. I think that they're a little too long, and there's some moments that I thought could have been, edited down a bit. But just from a emotional perspective, as we give our favorites of the year, this was definitely one of the big highlights for me. I just love that film, and I'll just use this opportunity to plug our interview with Kevin. If you haven't heard it, it's on our podcast for this particular film. You can go to, just subscribe and look for it anywhere you get your podcasts.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see how many times we're going to say, I want to throw it to our interview with those people, because we got a lot of amazing filmmakers who are going to be featured on this list. Absolutely. Jake, name your number 10 movie of the year.
Well, here's a situation where we won't be saying, let's throw it to our interview with the person who made this film. My number 10 is The Fabelmans, which I'm assuming is probably on other people's lists as well.
So we will hold it and discuss it a little bit later on in the show. But I am very intrigued that it's snuck in at number 10.
Yeah.
I want to get to a little more analysis of that as we get closer to it. My number 10 is very similar to Kevin's in this instance, in that it was a personal pick for a movie that I just really enjoyed watching over and over again, which was Adam Sandler's film Hustle.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Great choice.
Really?
That's a great pick.
Excuse me. Nothing special about it, like nothing out of the ordinary about it, but it's the type of movie
that's just how you lead off a top 10 film.
Yeah, nothing special. What I mean is, it just does the things that it is supposed to do really, really well. And I think Sandler, it's not that this is a straight up drama, but it's not his Hubie Halloweens, essentially, as much as I love a good Hubie.
In between Hubie and Uncut Gems.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It doesn't have to go full Safdie, but it also doesn't have to have Rob Schneider in it. The only thing that I still don't like about this movie is Ben Foster's character. Like, he is such a mustache twirling, evil GM, but, the guy that they found to play, the up and comer Hernan Gomez is just so charismatic. And then Anthony Edwards playing the villain basketball player who trash talks him all the time is terrific. The way they shot the basketball scenes is fantastic. There have been a number of really good basketball movies, and this one automatically jumps near the top for me, just for the way that it portrays someone getting recruited, going through the process of having to make it in the NBA and get recognized by the scouts. And there's an emotional component to both Adam Sandler's story and Hernan Gomez's story that was completely unexpected for me, but I was totally invested in each of them. And I just thought it was a really solid movie that I found myself kept going back to time and time again. And this is one of those aspects in that because it was on Netflix, and I know that streaming isn't the greatest way to see a movie, and I never got to see this movie on the big screen. But it'd be really easy for me just to, when I'm scanning through Netflix, be like, oh, Hustle, I'll throw that back on. And it was a great rewatch movie. And so I was surprised when I was putting my list together. I decided I was going to drop it at number 10. So Hustle, check it out on Netflix if you have not had a chance to see it yet. Kev.
Also,
Yes.
Jeremiah Zager, director Jeremiah Zager, joined us for Hustle, and he was fantastic.
He was a really fun interview. He was
very
really
passionate about that film. And
you talked about the basketball scenes a lot and the shooting of that, right? And it was really cool how they were able to I agree. That's a really good pick, and it's not on my list. I'm assuming it's not on Jake's either, but that was one of those films that kind of snuck up on me. Like it was a big surprise. That's a really good pick, and I think I just remember Anthony Edwards. I love that movie. It's a really, really well made movie. It's well shot and everything. Like they really kind of made those basketball sequences very immersive. The way the camera worked in that, for sure.
And I just love Sandler. I mean,
he's great.
Sandler doesn't get enough credit for a lot of the performances he does. So, all right, number 9, Kev. Where are you going with number 9?
I'm with number 9 again, kind of more of a personal pick as well. But again, that's what this whole list is about, right? It's our favorites. But I remember getting out of this film and going, man, I felt like the kid again who watched the first one in theaters. Yeah, the kid. But I went with the Scream film this year because I just felt like the filmmakers who also joined our podcast for a great interview. We did a spoiler deep dive with them. They found a way to honor Wes Craven in a really beautiful way. They were able to make an homage to Craven, keep the legacy characters intact in important ways, but also make their own film. I didn't know who the killer was going to be at the end. They did a lot of great jobs of misdirect. It is a brutal film, definitely the most violent of the other Scream films. And it's interesting because that was kind of my first really big moment of learning about how much I loved Jenna Ortega as an actor. Because that opening scene was so majorly just perfect. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you're never going to top the Janet Leigh style Drew Barrymore sequence, killing someone off that soon, that major star power, which is, an interesting thing because it's just an iconic scene that you can't touch. But
and you know what's nuts? Even by them just attempting it, I was like, oh, you guys are crazy, but it worked.
Right. And it worked because they were, one of the things that I love about that scene in particular, Jenna just crushes that scene performance wise, but also that scene is involving a lot of misdirect, but also they really utilize technology differently in a new way here. Like, the idea of Drew Barrymore's scene being in the 90s and this scene being in 2022, what can you add in that make that scene scarier? Cell phones, texting, alarm system, whatever it would be. Not that there weren't alarm systems back then, but it's just one of those things. So that I loved the film. I thought it was made by people who loved the material and it didn't feel like a cash grab. It actually felt like a genuinely great Scream film. It's my favorite since the first. Even though I do love 2 and I love the ending of 2, it's my favorite since the first one. So I thought it was a wonderful film and I'm very excited about the new Scream.
Yes, very excited to see them in New York. Ghostface takes Manhattan.
Yeah, man. I'm
Which
excited
means they'll be
about
on
that.
a boat for 45 minutes and then in New York for 10 minutes.
I love Jason Takes Manhattan, man.
Okay, do you just love that one scene? Because
I love that movie.
He's barely in New York. It should be Jason's on a boat headed toward Manhattan.
It would be amazing if Scream kept true to the format
and they stayed on a boat
the whole time of Ghostface on a boat,
or like that when it shows them like the trailers them on a subway, they're actually taking it like the train like from Jersey into Manhattan, and the majority of the movie is them on the train, and that'd be fantastic.
Number 9, Jake.
My
We are
number 9, and I'm
discussing
curious
your number
to
9.
see if. Oh, we are discussing.
We're discussing your number
Oh,
9.
wow. Okay, well, then I am the only one who put Elvis on my top 10 list.
Very true.
I absolutely love. I mean, the energy that I had walking out of that, I loved the frenetic energy of Baz Luhrmann's direction and the editing. And like I didn't grow up an Elvis fan. Like, to me, he was someone who was kind of there in pop culture. I was sort of aware of his songs. Like, I knew them utilized in different areas, different facets, different films of pop culture. But this was the first time where I ever genuinely paused and saw him as a three-dimensional man, saw him as a man who endured highs and lows and ups and downs and trials and tribulations. And Austin Butler gives, I think, far and away one of the best performances of the year. And I know we've had a lot of debate on who's going to win Best Actor, but we're in a fortunate enough position where there are a handful of guys, while I'm maybe cheering for one over the other, there are a handful of guys that if they walked away with a Best Actor Oscar, I wouldn't be mad about. And Austin Butler is one of them. Like, if they call Austin Butler's name on Oscar night, I'm not going to be mad about that. I'm in the minority on this. I loved Tom Hanks's mustache twirling, cigar chewing, very Baz Luhrmann kind of villain. I loved how he did it. I loved the framework in which we see this story, that we see it through his perspective as he is dying on his deathbed. I just thought it was a brilliant, brilliant movie. A huge, and I'll say this multiple times because it's a factor for a lot of films on my list. A huge X factor for me in choosing films on my list is replayability. How, it's sure it's great one time in theaters, but what's it like when I pop it on HBO Max? What's it like when my parents are visiting and they want to watch the screener and I play it for them? Does it still play well? And for me, I've watched Elvis a couple of times and it still leaves me with just such a frenetic energy that I just could not deny my love for this movie. Also, Baz Luhrmann on the show.
Yeah, listen to our Baz Luhrmann interview. Yeah,
and Tom Hanks as well too.
And, that's right. We had Tom Hanks.
Oh my God! Did I just forget Tom Hanks?
Oh yeah, Jake. Yeah. Also,
we had Tom Hanks and Baz Luhrmann separately for Elvis. Definitely listen.
So ironically, not Elvis.
Yes, not yet. Anyway, we're trying to get. And I agree with you. I wouldn't mind Austin getting the win on Oscar night. I just feel like
he's incredible
because he's young. And I hate that this plays into it. People sort of dismiss him and say like, oh, he'll get another shot at some point down the road. And that might be true. And it might even be next year with Dune Part 2 because his part is pretty significant.
Yeah,
is that right?
It's a big part. Oh, it's the Sting part.
Is it really the Sting part? Oh, that's great.
Another musician. He's playing another musician. He's playing Sting playing the part.
Yes.
Oh, that's a choice. All right. Number 8. No, 9. 9
for you.
Thank you. Is Inarritu's Bardot. Did you get a chance to try it?
Made it.
Did you try it? You didn't try it? And listen, it's a long sit. I understand people who give it a shot if they don't make it all the way through it, because it is, to me, pretentious in the best way possible. It is the work of a true artist. I just can't shake the movie after watching it. It's one of these autobiographical approaches to film, the way that Cuarón did with Roma, and the way that Spielberg does with The Fabelmans. It essentially approaches a lot of the things that Inarritu has had to go through as a filmmaker who is from Mexico, who left to have a life in Los Angeles, and the guilt that comes with that, the guilt he feels for quote unquote abandoning his homeland. And I'm assuming, because the main character is a documentary filmmaker who I'm assuming is a stand-in for Inarritu, who is essentially, whenever he goes back home, bombarded by the people who still live there, calling him a sellout behind his back, but sort of championing him when he's around, and the phoniness that sort of surrounds the film community. And he dives into a lot of stuff with his family about how they feel, his kids feel being torn between Mexico and America. But just the artistry that's on display in this movie is mind-blowing. From the opening shot, the opening shot is going to just hook you, and there's an explanation as to what the opening shot is that I don't even want to give away, because what I want to say to you as you're trying to do Bardot, because it is near 3 hours, if not even 3 hours on the dot. This is the year of 3-hour movies for some reason. I don't know why all filmmakers are just cut loose and able to do what they wanted to do. There are moments throughout Bardot where I was like, what is this movie doing? Like, where are we going? How come we're in this lane? I don't quite get it. I followed it, but I didn't really understand where it was going. And then when it comes around to the end, and you realize what he was doing with the complete picture, it ties back into the opening shot, and it was masterful. I mean, I'm not breaking news when I tell you that Inarritu is an incredible filmmaker. This was an incredible film that I had to find someplace for on my list, so I stuck it at number 9. You two both need to check it out. You got to give it a shot.
I want to see it. I mean, he's one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. I mean, Maurice Perros, and then everything going forward.
21 Grams,
Birdman, 21 Grams,
Revenant.
He's absolutely amazing. Dude. So wait, it's interesting. He usually works with Chivo, right? Like Chivo shot Birdman and Revenant. So you worked with Darius Kanji on this one. I think it's Ridley Scott's guy.
I wonder why.
That's interesting.
Was Chivo working on something else?
I don't know.
If he was busy.
It's interesting.
Or previously detained. All right.
Darius Kanji also shot at Armageddon Time. Wait, am I wrong on him being Ridley Scott's guy? I think I might be wrong on that. He actually shot Uncut Gems. Never mind. He's not Ridley Scott's guy.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem. You are at number 8, Kev.
Yes. My number 8 is also another personal favorite, which is, are we discussing this one, or does anybody else have this on their top 10?
We are discussing it.
Oh, wow. All right. The Adam Project.
All right.
Oh, I would have thought Sean would have had it on his list.
Yes, very close. Came very close. I actually went Hustle instead of Adam Project, but it was in contention.
No, I love this film. And again, it's a film that I don't find to be perfect. I think that this is a film that just kind of hit me in the feels from a nostalgic perspective. I think Sean Levy is obviously a great storyteller and filmmaker. He was on our show for this particular film, also for Free Guys. If you want to check that out, check it out. But there's like 2 scenes in this film that have stuck with me all year, specifically a sequence with Jennifer Garner and Ryan Reynolds in the bar, which I won't go into specific details, but
that's one of the best scenes this year.
Yeah, imagine having the opportunity to sit down and hear what your mom is thinking about, and the idea of what you were doing at that age that was making her not feel good, and the idea of imagine having that peer windowing into that aspect of someone's life and knowing that information,
or even better, an older version of yourself being able to say to your mom, hey, this is why I'm doing that.
Right.
Right.
Imagine
Which
that.
you can't do as a kid. You can't explain why you're acting the way you're acting.
Right. And for people who don't know, Ryan Reynolds' character essentially, travels back in time essentially to his younger self, and he's his older self interacting with his younger self. Walker Scobell plays the younger version. He's fantastic.
That kid's great.
Great Ryan Reynolds in terms of playing the younger Ryan Reynolds. They have great scenes together, great chemistry. And then Mark Ruffalo, who plays his father, there's a scene at the end of the film with Ryan and Mark that is just devastating, but also life affirming in a beautiful way. I mean, that film kind of really encompassed a lot of those things. And I don't want to butcher the gentleman's last name, but Rob Simonson or Rob Simonson or Simonson, whatever you pronounce his name. Simonson. He did the music for the film, and he also did the score for The Whale. Incredible composer, but the music for the Adam Project is incredible. But I just thought Ryan, this is a film that I could tell meant a lot to Ryan Reynolds, and there was a lot of passion that went into this. And I know Ryan lost his father years ago, so I would imagine that there was a certain catharsis to being able to play this out. And the idea of kind of going back and understanding that, and obviously it's a fictional story, but some of the best things about acting is being able to cathartically work through things in your life that maybe you weren't able to in your real life, but through the performance of something, you might be able to unlock it or give yourself a little bit of a better explanation for certain things. I'm not projecting that Ryan did that, but that's kind of what I gathered from it. It felt like super passionate from his perspective. And they picked a perfect kid, Walker Scobell, to play his younger self. So I love that film. It was really beautiful. Again, not perfect. There's some things in it that I think could have been ironed out or edited out, but it's still just a film that really resonated with me emotionally this year.
Should have ended with Adam's song over the end credits. Would have been great.
that's a really good Blink-182 joke right there. I like that a lot.
Thank you, Kev. Jake, number 8.
My number 8
Mr.
is
Hamilton.
a film I am assuming I'm going to be able to discuss because I don't think anyone else has it on their list. My number 8 is Nope.
All right, we will hold that and circle back around to Nope. when it gets a little bit higher on
I
people's
never get
lists.
to talk about my movies.
Oh, you know, you're actually not going to be able for a little while.
What?
All right. Number 8 for me was number 10 for Jake. It is The Fablemans. We're going to hold because it's going to be even higher on Kevin's list, apparently.
As it should be.
And we're going to get to number 7 for Kevin McCarthy.
All right, wow, we're already back to me. All right, my number 7. Are we discussing this one, or is this higher on people's list?
Higher on people's lists.
Okay, my number 7 is James Cameron's Avatar: The Way of Water.
Ooh.
I'm sorry. Did you get that title? Is that a small independent? Did you get that title right?
Yes. But and by the way, the reason I mixed up earlier with Darius Kanji, Darius Wolski is Ridley Scott's guy, and Darius Kanji is the one who shot Bardo.
How dare you
I
mix up?
apologize.
Come on.
On this show,
Come on.
What a hack.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
Jake, you're number 7.
My number 7 is Darren Aronofsky's The Whale. I actually don't know if it's on anyone else's list.
I am keeping
Kevin's
track
maybe?
of this. You are holding it. The
Yeah, I
Whale will
figured.
be higher on someone else's
Must
list.
be nice to be able to talk about the films that you love. I wouldn't know.
Hey, we're going to talk about a film that I loved next. And this was a late addition to the charts, my friends. This is Marcel the Shell with shoes on.
Wow.
Mother of God, is this movie just an open heart
You watched
It
this
is-
today, didn't you?
today.
Wow.
Well, no, to be fair, what had happened was I watched half of Marcel on a plane, and I was enamored with it and never got a chance to finish it. And we got a disc. I knew I was going to finish it before we got to our top 10s. And then today I was like, oh my God, we're recording our top 10s today. So I threw it on. I started from the beginning and I ran it back. And it is just so adorable. It's Jenny Slate wrote the story for it. She voices Marcel. It's essentially a filmmaker who's making a documentary about this shell who is alive and has one eye and talks and wears shoes. And it's the interplay between Marcel and the filmmaker, and how come Marcel doesn't understand why the filmmaker doesn't reveal more stuff about himself and what exactly is a documentary. And Marcel has only one member of his family left, and it's Nana Connie, who's this older shell, who's a little bit forgetful and isn't 100% sure what's going on in her life. And Marcel eventually wants to find his community because he had a whole bunch of shells that lived in the same pot that he lived in. And then one day the couple that he lived with got into a fight and they separated, and the lady took the potted plant. So Marcel lost his entire family. But it's a mix of live action and stop motion animation. It's a commentary on social media because little by little, the documentary filmmaker is uploading clips of Marcel to social media, and he's exploding. He's becoming a viral TikTok star, even though he doesn't quite understand what the internet is. At one point, he wants to go out with the director and try to find where his family might be. And they put Marcel on the dashboard of his car, and he drives to the edge of the street, and they look out over Los Angeles, and Marcel says, so is that all that's out there? And he goes, to what? He goes, to everything. And the guy goes, no, this is a very small part of a tiny neighborhood in a city, and there's lots of other cities and all these other places. And he's just so overwhelmed by how small he feels in the world. There's a lot of other really touching elements that are involved in it. I was, like I said, blown away by the stop motion animation. Story's incredible, really, really beautiful, very, very touching ending. And Jenny Slate, I kid you not, should be in some sort of awards conversation for her vocal performance. And I never understand why vocal performance doesn't get considered, because I think it's a performance just as much as anything else. I think Tom Hanks should have multiple Oscars for playing Woody. And if this was the case, then Jenny Slate should get a Best Actress nomination for the way that she does Marcel.
I have a quick question, and again, I have not seen it, but as based on what I've seen so far, I can honestly say I don't get it. How does this fit into Best Animated Feature exactly? Just because it features some stop motion?
There's more stop motion than you would think.
Okay.
It is
enough to justify putting it in the animated feature category.
It's close to.
If you were okay, let me ask you something.
It's close
if
to
it
category
beats if it beats Pinocchio at for the Oscar for Best Animated Feature, would that annoy you?
It wouldn't annoy me because I love Marcel, but it would kind of like, that's a little bit cheating.
Do you think it would annoy Guillermo del Toro?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Sean, was there a scene where the two shells met the two rocks from Everything Everywhere All at Once?
No, because no one knows where the rocks are, Kev.
But
And they're
maybe the
not
shells
supposed to find
do.
them. Hey, maybe they do. Maybe that's the sequel.
I'd watch that.
All right, Kev, you're number 6.
My number 6. Are we discussing or are we continuing?
Tell me what it is first. You got to tell me what it is first, and then I'll tell you what we're doing.
Number 6 is Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans.
It's finally time
Well,
to talk about
you're the last
Fabelmans.
person.
Yes, finally time for us to talk about the Fabelmans.
All right. Do I start on this?
You
Yeah, Kev,
certainly
take it away.
do.
Take
It's
it
your
away.
number 6.
Well, I mean, obviously, I could go on forever. I mean, Kaminsky's cinematography in this is just some of the best he's ever done. But performance-wise, you know, for a film that is about or loosely based on Steven Spielberg's childhood, it does give you a window and an insight into a lot of what, you know, the drama and the elements of characters that you saw in Spielberg's earlier work. I mean, obviously, James Lipton pointed out that beautiful connection to Close Encounters, and we've seen these aspects throughout Spielberg's careers with families in movies and kind of like, but then you realize that he was really kind of working through his own issues, but kind of almost unknowingly. And then with Fabelmans, he's really kind of taking it head on. And I think the kid who plays him, Gabriel LaBelle, is absolutely incredible. Like he looks just like him as the film goes on.
Didn't we lean over to each other at the AFI screening and go like, "Holy crap,
Yeah.
he looks like him."
It looks incredible. And I also just, you know, from somebody who just loves celluloid and film so much, just to see the operation of the 8mm and the 16mm cameras. And there's a moment I've told you guys about where I thought it was just so beautiful, because the whole movie, you realize that the character Sammy Fabelman is really trying to understand his life through movies, right? So if his parents are going through a divorce, he finds a way to film it in his mind or think about it through the scope of a movie. Like, for example, earlier in the film, he crashes a train and he films it because the mother says, "You're trying to control it," right? And so later on in the film, there's a moment where the parents are getting a divorce. They're mentioning to the kids that they're going to get a divorce, and we're in 35mm. And as the scene is happening, we switch to 16, which the grain shifts. There's more grain that happens on the screen because we have now gone into Sammy's mind about how he is narratively understanding this moment. And then you see Sammy filming it in the mirror and with the camera. So I was just blown away by the way this film worked, and obviously the ending and the bullying things that came about, the arc of that character. David Lynch is so great as John,
John Ford.
John Ford. That moment is absolutely incredible. And I want to tell people, if you haven't seen the video where Spielberg is explaining this story, I think he's telling Jon Favreau about it.
Yeah, it's terrific.
And then watch the scene in the movie. It's literally moment for moment. And I do think it has arguably one of the greatest shots of Spielberg's career, which is the final shot of the film. So
I would agree with that.
I absolutely loved that movie, and it was just it was just a beautiful tribute to a filmmaker that we've spent a lot of time with. And John Williams' score is incredible.
So I had it at 8, and the reason why it slid down my list, because initially it was much higher, is because on a rewatch, I found myself really connecting with the filmmaking elements, like all the parts about Sammy and learning his art of film, and I found myself less interested in the family bits. I was riveted in them as they were happening. I wasn't as, and I think that it does sort of branch off into other territories as it goes, right? And I can't fault the movie for, like, Spielberg wants to explore these territories. He has all the world to explore these territories, you know, but it's almost it's a little too much for one movie. But I was never like not engaged with what was happening. But if he had just kept it to the filmmaking aspect of it, I probably would consider it a perfect movie. But I love it, even though it has those flaws. I felt the hanging around and the family divorce aspect. It weighed on me a little bit more the second time, of like, all right, let's get back to some of the filmmaking stuff, because I like those elements a lot better. And he does return back to them, like when he's able to go shoot the beach day, you know, for his high school, or cut together the stuff of Michelle Williams dancing, because that was the last time that she felt happy after her mother passes away. Those elements are really beautiful. And then, of course, it ends on the John Ford thing, which is just fantastic. Like, I could watch that scene over and over again. That's an all-timer from Spielberg. But that's the only reason why it slipped down to 8. It's a great movie. And he's a master of his craft. If you're talking about it from a filmmaking perspective, it's brilliant. I just felt he wandered through his narrative a tad. But again, he has every right to do that in a movie that is this personal to him. So, Jake, you bought it at 10, which means it just made it.
Yeah, so I mean, you guys had asked why it was at the number 10 spot, and again, it brings up the factor of rewatchability in that, like, I love the film. I also don't see myself putting it on and watching it a lot in the future. But that being said, I still absolutely love the film. I mean, Spielberg's my favorite director, and this movie really gives you a whole new perspective of so many of his films. I mean, obviously there are the easy ones to point out, like Close Encounters and E.T. But I even put on Crystal Skull was on the other day. And there's a throwaway line where they talk about how Indy introduced Marion to her first husband because it was a friend of his, which, like, I kind of paused and went like,
oh, that's interesting.
That's interesting. Like, I wondered if that's like a little nod to what happened to his parents. So even like something as crazy as Crystal Skull, it makes you sort of listen to it and see it differently. And that's pretty incredible that one film can make you look at an entire filmography differently. A lot of people talk about like the final John Ford moment, which is one of my top 10 probably favorite scenes this year. But for me, the scene that really gets me is the one with him and the bully in the hallway, where Spielberg really starts to understand the power of film, and specifically his power and the impact that it has on other people. And to me, that's the scene that really drives home. I do agree with you, Sean. I wouldn't mind maybe a little less of the family element, and like to the point where, and again, I get that this is the idea of the ending and this is what it's supposed to leave you, but like whenever the movie ended, there was a part of me that's like, oh, this is what I want to see. I want to see you like walking around the studio and stuff. Again, I'm knocking little tidbits of like a film that is on my top 10 list, but that's why I hate to say like it barely made it. It's squarely in my top 10. But that's why it's not higher.
Also, shout out to Judd Hirsch, because that scene about art and family is just devastatingly true.
I'm going to earn him a supporting nomination.
Brilliant performance. Yeah.
That scene alone. Jake, number 6.
My number 6 is probably not going to be discussed right now. My number 6 is Babylon.
You need to sit on Babylon for a little while at 6. All right.
I just want to talk about some of my movies.
You will soon. Stop putting the great ones so low, for God's sakes. All right, my number 6 before we conclude this shift of the film of the conversation, and then get into our top 5s, which is going to be pretty major, is a movie that I'm a little bit surprised that we are discussing. At number 6 is the goddamn Batman. What's wrong with you guys? Batman is at number 6, and it's Matt Reeves's.
I had a hard time not putting it on my top 10. If I'm being honest,
crazy.
I'm sorry.
You talk about rewatchability.
I was just about to say, I have a feeling that's the movie that in a year I'm going to look back and go, I can't believe I didn't put that on my top 10.
Dude, it's great. And what I love about it is that Batman is such a tired character and franchise. He's been done to death. And the fact that Matt Reeves made him feel fresh and original in any way, shape, or form is a minor miracle. I love the atmosphere, obviously, that it creates in Gotham. I love the idea to start with a year 2 Batman who's already kind of moving along. I think Paul Dano is outstanding as the Riddler. I think Colin Farrell is unrecognizable as the Penguin. I love Zoe Kravitz's take on Catwoman. I love Pattinson in the role. The car chase is just one of those sequences. Kev, when you pick a movie out to show off your home theater system, like add the car chase to the list, because it's just one of those sequences that
great scene
you have to hear. You have to hear it in order to fully experience it. And I cannot wait for Matt Reeves to make 3 more of these films, 3 or 4 more of these films. And it's pretty fascinating to me that as DC falls apart and James Gunn decides he's going to rebuild, that he's already officially said, like, well, one corner of the DC is fine. Like, Matt Reeves is going to keep doing what he's doing and leave him alone, and then I'm going to fix the rest, sort of thing, because there's nothing fixed there. Like, Batman's just an incredible film, and I bumped it all the way up to number 6. So, Gabe, we're inching into the top 5. What do we want to do? Take a break? Throw it to an ad? Why don't we throw it to an ad? All right, we'll throw it to an ad and come back on the other side with our top 5 movies of 2022. And And we are back. All right, here we go. The top 5 movies of 2022 as determined by the individual hosts of the ReelBlend podcast, followed by our collective top 5. And I'm throwing it to Kevin, who is going to tell me what his number 5 movie of 2022 is.
Number 5 movie of 2022 is Joseph Kosinski's Top Gun Maverick.
You are going to hold your thoughts on that film, my friend.
Sounds good.
As Maverick is going to be a little bit higher on a few other lists.
Sounds good.
Jake Hamilton, your number 5 movie of 2022 is...
My number 5 movie is a movie that I have been talking about all year long, and I'm still excited that it's, I think, reasonably high on my list. It's X. It is not just my favorite horror film of the year, but it is one of my favorite movies of the year. I mean, it's both a throwback and a love letter to old, gritty, nasty sort of Texas Chainsaw Massacre B movies that I grew up loving, but then also sort of this new spin and take on those types of sort of, the Texas hillbilly kind of horror, and that it actually really does have something to say, and that these horror movies, so much of them are the old people are the people that we're meant to fear in a lot of ways, or they're the prognosticators of the horror that is to come. And one of the interesting elements that X points out is that, like, listen, eventually we all become the old people that live in the house, and we all become the prognosticators of the terror that's to come, because, as Pearl taught us, we've seen a lot of the terror that is to come. And it's one of the few horror movies that really looks at it from that angle, from the inside out. It has some absolutely spectacular kills, a truly great ensemble cast. Jenna Ortega, as we learned in both Scream and X and Wednesday, just absolutely crushed that genre this year. I think she is one of this year's MVPs.
Mia Goth had a year too.
Mia Goth, absolutely fantastic. I was not a massive Pearl fan, but there is a monologue she has that I think should be putting her in more of a Best Actress consideration, even though I didn't particularly love that film. But I just absolutely love everything about X. And Kevin, I hope you take this as a compliment. I can't think about that opening shot without thinking of Kevin McCarthy, which is the shot through the barn doors where it's in 4:3. And when he pushes through the barn doors, it expands to, I'm assuming, like a 16:9. I'm sorry, I don't know what it expands to. But it's clearly such a love letter to those old school, great 70s horror films that I love so much, Texas Chainsaw being one of my favorites. So proudly, I put X on my top 10.
Hi, Wes. Nice. Another guest of the show, and who discusses
I didn't even
shot.
ask if I'm supposed to discuss it, but I just assumed you guys didn't have it on your list.
You're correct.
My number 1.
It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny that you just blew right through that.
I'm sorry. I just realized halfway through, I was like, I'm gonna feel like shit.
It'd be funnier if it was number 10.
Yeah. Oh, that way up. X is V. X is V.
Hey, all right. Let's all collectively agree to put Fast X at number 10 next year, right?
Family.
Just no matter what. Okay.
We don't do the Razzies, Sean.
My number 5.
You know what? See, that is don't even get me started. I'm not taking the bait. I'm not taking the bait.
Kev, I knew what button I was pushing.
I'm not taking the bait. I'm not taking the bait.
Have you guys seen that meme of the dude sweating and it's like 2 buttons and one of them's like make a Fast X joke and leave Kevin alone? Like that would be like the two. That would be the meme that would be represented.
I'm all in, man. I can't wait.
I'm picking a movie at number 5 that I saw at South by Southwest that blew me away, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since. It's Carey Williams' film Emergency, which takes place on a college campus, and it stars Donald Elise Watkins and RJ Seiler as 2 black friends who stumble upon, or they come back home to their condo or apartment, on campus apartment, one night to find a very drunk white girl in their living room, and have to quickly determine what they can do moving forward in what is a very sad reality, in that they just can't simply call for help because they think and probably rightfully assume that they are going to be held accountable for something that they didn't do. And Donald Elise Watkins' character, Kunle, has an extremely bright future ahead of him. RJ's character, Sean, is more of a goof off, more of a stoner, and is actually very protective of Kunle and saying, like, this is why we can't do this. This is why we can't just do the right thing. And then it becomes like over the course of the evening, how these two guys are going to try to get this young girl back to, because she's clearly underage. How are they going to get her back to the people who she's with? It's incredibly smart commentary all the way through. It looked like it was going to be a party movie, like a college party movie. And in fact, I hate giving away a little bit of what the hook is, but if you don't know at this point now, I'm sorry. But when you set it up, it's very stylishly shot. Like these two best friends were planning an all time, party hopping. They were going to go from fraternity house to fraternity house. And the way that Carrie Williams sort of shoots those to show you the different fraternity parties they were going to be going to makes it seem like, oh, we're in American Pie territory, or this is going to be like Neighbors or something like that. And it takes that hard left turn of just like, oh shit, these guys are really in a spot where I don't know how they're going to get out of. Their two performances are outstanding. Like I said, really, really smart film, and I wish more people got a chance to see it. It's on Amazon Prime.
It's a great film.
You got a chance to check it out?
Yeah, I did. And the fun thing is I actually put it on because of your recommendation from earlier this year. And it was when my mom was visiting for Thanksgiving, and she had no idea. Whenever my mom comes to visit or whatever, my parents, I always just say, okay, we're going to watch this, sit down and watch it. And so I kind of get to watch their experience watching things blindly.
Yeah.
And watching her. And again, I hadn't seen Emergency, but I kind of knew what it was about, and I knew sort of what was coming, at least the gist of it.
Yeah.
Watch her slowly kind of realize what was happening was incredible. And it was such a cool way to sort of realize, and she was screaming out loud and yelling. And I think she was cursing you at one point because I told her that you were the person that recommended it. So she may have sent some curse words your way, but oh my God, it's a truly phenomenal film.
It's really great. I hope more people check it out due to our recommendations. Kev, you are at number 4 on your list of 2022.
I wonder if we're discussing this one. My number 4 is The Banshees of Inisherin. That also your number 4.
You are holding that, sir. Oh, wait, it's Jake's number 4 also? All right, well, then we're going to discuss it between the two of you guys. There you go.
Yeah, first of all, this film, this is one of my favorite movies of the year, but also my favorite film Martin has done since definitely In Bruges. In Bruges was really McDonagh's like the film that really kind of got me into him as a filmmaker. I didn't love Seven Psychopaths. I really liked Three Billboards. But the simplicity of this movie, yet the depth of it is just insane to me. It's such a simple story, but the depth and character aspects that Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell and is it Carrie Condon bring to the role. And Barry Keoghan. There's so many amazing performances in this film. But the idea of a film, if you tell somebody the basic premise is just two best friends and one guy decides he doesn't want to be friends with the other guy ever again. It sounds so simplistic, but it's so weighted in the years of friendship, the questions, the entire film leading up to any explanation. You're just on the edge of your seat wondering why Brendan Gleeson won't talk to Colin Farrell's character. And once it's revealed why he won't speak to him, the urgency of Colin's character trying to talk to him, and then the threat that Brendan Gleeson character gives him, which he does follow through with in a really brutally disturbing way, was really just fascinating to me. And Colin Farrell's sister, Carrie Condon's character, I think is one of the best performances of the year as well. She was wonderful in this movie. And there's
she's
a scene
serious contender for supporting actress, I think.
She's amazing. There's a scene with her and Barry Keoghan out by the water, if I'm mistaken, that where he essentially kind of like tries to ask her out. And it's like this really like, I don't know, it's like a devastating sequence for the character. And I don't know what it was. I sat down, I didn't know much about it. I didn't watch the trailer for it. I don't remember seeing the trailer for it. Maybe I did, but I just forgotten about it. But, I didn't have really any expectations other than I heard it was great. And I just found it to be so incredibly life affirming, but also just devastating at the same time.
Didn't you and I see it on the same day?
We may have. Yeah.
It's in the same spot on our top 10. That's kind of fun.
Yeah. Because Jake and I went and saw it after it had come out. And yeah, I don't know. It was just a film that struck me really, really heavily emotionally. And I think Colin Farrell might deliver the best performance of his career in this film. I really do.
By far. He's another one that if he won Best Actor, I'd be totally fine with it.
And there's this constant bit throughout the film where they're you know, in the accent, they, instead of saying the F word, it sounds like feck. There's an arc that happens with that specific word that is delivered later on in the film that I think might be the greatest line delivery of the year. And it's so simple, but so effective and so monumentally impactful. I just remember that movie ending going, damn, that was absolutely incredible. It was shot. Didn't Martin build that like pub that they end? I read a story that he did an amazing interview with Taylor Swift recently, where I think he talked about they actually physically built that pub, but they had to tear it down. I wish they could have kept it up for like a touristy thing. But yeah, that movie is absolutely fantastic. I loved it. The Banshees of Inisherin. See it, please. Is it on HBO Max?
On HBO Max now. Yeah.
Please watch this movie. It is, and try not to let the simplicity of the plot make you go, I don't know if I want to sit through that. It's really beautiful.
Well, I'm going to pick it up there because it's my number 4 film as well. And you're right. Like on the surface, it sounds like a very simple plot. Like it just sounds like one friend doesn't want to be friends with another and makes this really dark threat. If you don't leave me alone, I'm going to do this thing. But what's crazy is that that story, that film, that script, that plot is about so much. It's about starting to question your mortality on this earth and what people think of you after you leave. It's starting to question your place on this earth and what people think of you right now. Colin Farrell has this incredible moment where he starts questioning, wait, am I the village idiot? Am I the person everyone makes fun of behind their back? And, you know, the more I think about this movie, it actually, I think, really has a lot to say about ghosting culture, you know, like in the dating world, this idea of just straight up being like, I don't want to talk to you anymore and I don't feel like you're worthy of an explanation and I'm just going to disappear. There are so many different, I mean, and who would have thought that like a story set in 1920s Ireland could be a testament to like a dating trend that has only existed within the last 10 to 15 years. Like who would have thought that like that would somehow potentially tie together? It has so much to say. I've gone to Kevin with my theories about like, well, what does it mean that, you know, there's a song that is being written throughout the movie and you never hear the song in its entirety. And I think there's some meaning behind that. And so we were kind of debating that. And I guess just what I want to emphasize is that like we keep talking about how simple this shoestring concept is, and yet we keep talking about what it really means and the different layers to it. And to me, like that's brilliant. To me, like I think it is one of the most brilliant screenplays of probably the last decade. I think Martin McDonagh is one of the most incredible playwrights and screenwrights. If you've never had a chance to see any of his stage work before, if it ever comes to your town or you're ever in New York, it's worth it. But it sounds simple, yes, but I promise you won't stop thinking about it. It's not.
And the parallels to war are really interesting.
Yeah,
like really fascinating. Yeah, you just see it. It's really layered. And really beautiful. Yeah.
A colleague of ours, Drew McQueenie, used a phrase that really connects with me. I use it often, where he says, sometimes you just bounce off of a movie, where you try it and everyone else loves it, but for some reason you just can't get into it. And that's me with Banshees. I've tried to watch Banshees 3 different times. I punch out around the same time, where I'm just like, this is not for me. I can't do it.
Interesting.
I know. I can't.
I don't know why it just hit me. It surprisingly hit me.
I had that experience. I was just talking about this with Sean. I had that experience with RRR. I really, really tried to like RRR. I so badly wanted to get into it and it's just not my thing. I just couldn't do it. And I know I'm on the outside looking in. And to use your example, I bounced off of it. It just didn't work for me.
Yeah, I don't get it. All right, my number 4 is one of the most enjoyable times I had at the movies this year. It was Rian Johnson's Glass Onion, a Knives Out story. Well, you guys talk about a perfect script. I think this is a perfect script, and it's one of those ones that's loaded with so many funny lines that you can't catch them the first time through because you're so heavily paying attention to the mystery that you just need to sit back and enjoy the atmosphere and the ride, because he built something completely different than what he did with Knives Out. And it's incredibly smart that he now has a franchise that all he has to do is bring Daniel Craig around with him, and he can introduce him to a slew of new characters that are all incredibly colorful. I love the cast that he put together for this one. I think Catherine Hahn is terrific. Kate Hudson, thank you very much. Kate Hudson is fantastic. Edward Norton is at his best when he's playing an asshole. There's just no one better at doing it. And Janelle Monáe belongs in the Oscar consideration. And I can't, if you haven't seen it yet, I can't explain to you necessarily why it is so important that she gets attention for this. But she's a pivotal character. And you will be talking about her after you watch it. I love the fact that Daniel Craig is having as much fun in these that we wanted him to be having in Bond. It feels like Bond was a job for him. This one, he is clearly having the time of his life. The sequence where he, again, to not reveal too much for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, but when he essentially gives away the mystery that was set up for the weekend is hands down one of the funniest scenes I've seen this year. We watched this in Toronto, and it was the kind of thing where the script got applause breaks. Like when certain things dropped, there is a Mona Lisa, payoff in this that got applause. And it's just one of those films I can turn on with anybody, and I think they'll just have the time of their lives with it. So Glass Onion made it all the way up to number 4 for me, and we discussed it, which means the other guys didn't like it at all. So
in
all seriousness, that is always one of my pet peeves about top 10 list is whenever you don't put something on there, someone goes, "Oh, did you not like?" I'm like, well, the thing I always like to remind people of is I like more than 10 films. I love more than 10 films. They're like, you guys have named films that aren't on my list. I mean, I love The Batman. Love Glass Onion. These are films that I could very well in a year go, oh, I can't believe I didn't put that on my list. So reminder to everyone listening that there are more than 10 films that we like in a year.
And Glass Onion was on both mine and Jake's honorable mention list. And we had Ryan Johnson on the show for it. So please find that interview. We had Ryan on for both Knives Out 1 and the sequel. So if you want to do a little double dose of Ryan Johnson.
It's like we're a part of the franchise at this point,
Yeah.
We're going to be there for
And he was a great interview, so definitely check it out.
Which one of us would be the killer?
You. We all
think
know
you. Yeah, we've determined that
You're
it's
too clean
Or am I the obvious choice? Am I the person that like, oh, it's clearly me, therefore it's not me?
So you're the first one to die.
Oh, that'd be fun.
We got to get that reveal through.
You're our Jenna Ortega, essentially. Oh no,
I always say that about Jake.
She doesn't die.
He's our Drew Barrymore. You're our Drew Barrymore.
Wait. In one situation I survive, in one situation I don't. We really got to pick which one I am.
Yeah,
We'll let the listeners decide.
Jenna lives. I totally forgot that they flipped the script on that one. Kev, number 3. Oh, we're into the top 3 choices for 2022, and Kevin has selected
the Darren Aronofsky film The Whale.
All right, it's time to talk about The Whale then. Time to talk about The Whale.
Wait, I'm the only one?
It was my number
Jake
7.
had it at 7.
Okay. Then Jake, you go first.
7.
You go first, Jake.
Well, no, hang on.
Yeah.
You go first because it's higher on your list. That's how we do this.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I gotta go back to the moment I saw this because when the film ended, I remember feeling like I couldn't move out of my chair. And that the ending of this film is so profound and so just like it's honestly simultaneously one of the most devastating yet life-affirming films I've ever seen. And I think at the end of the day, there's a lot to be said about the amazing element of people and humanity and what we can do. And there's so much negativity in the world and there's a lot of terrible things that obviously happen in this world. But at the end of the day, the view of the character being that, regardless of how terrible things get, people really are amazing. And I think at the end of the day, one of the things that Darren Aronofsky did really well with this film, outside a lot of the technical things, I mean, I grew up watching Aronofsky, so Pi and Requiem were big films for me, and they were very highly stylized feature films that were really brilliantly edited and just extremely interesting to watch from a filmmaking standpoint. And Requiem was a really tough film, but just brilliantly shot and edited. But I think one thing he does here is he kind of puts away style a bit, and I'm not saying I want to clarify because style can mean a lot of things. There's a lot of things like when you see like really heavy style that you just think, oh, that's stylistic, but
this is not
a
Black
style
Swan
choice, right?
Yeah, this is he can get fancy.
Yeah, he can get right, but the style here really is the simplicity, right? It's the 4:3, the 1:3 ratio, and it's boxed in. When you do watch this film, that is the way it's supposed to look. If you're watching it at home or you go to a theater to see it, it is a square. So if you're going to have black on the left and right side of your screens, to me that worked as a way to feel the claustrophobia of the apartment. This is based on a play written by the playwright who actually wrote the screenplay. Is it Samuel D. Hunter? Do I have that name right?
Yeah.
Yep. Correct.
And I think one of the things I found so brilliant about the film, outside of, one thing that Brendan Fraser said in my interview, which I thought was really fascinating, at the beginning of the film, there's no way you don't notice, obviously, how big the character is and how unhealthy the character is. But that does melt away. You start really, I think one of the things that the film's trying to talk about is this idea that when you see somebody who is that obese, that is the thought process that might hit your mind at first. And you might not see the individual because you're so, taken back by the weight of that individual. But at the end, as you're watching the film, I just forgot he was X amount of pounds. I mean, clearly there's moments where he's trying to get up and move around. And that's where you're reminded of the aspect of that, his life. But the humanity behind the character is so far beyond and transcends the weight that, like, that to me was really the beauty of the film, the immersion of the film, because he's really wearing this suit. I mean, the makeup effects are absolutely incredible. Brendan's performance is just devastating. Like there are lines of dialogue. There's a trailer they just released for the film that has a line at the end of it that is, I wouldn't watch that trailer because I'm glad I didn't see that scene prior to seeing the film. But Sadie Sink is wonderful. The character, a lot of people, why is she so mean? That's how kids are. And in this particular situation, I understand why she's pissed. I mean, he left the family. I mean, it makes sense why she's angry at her father. And so to me, and Hong Chow, I mean, what a performance. What a performance. When you find out the reveal of her connection to him, it's just damn. Anyway, so long story short, it's a really profound film. When it ended, I couldn't talk. I was crying just for 20 minutes straight. I could not even get my words together. I just remember it was just a really beautiful experience. And I don't really get the hatred for it online. If we talk about film Twitter all the time, there's just so much negativity towards the film. And I do want to mention that I do understand people's perspectives. I get people's opinion pieces. I'm not saying you're wrong or right. Just hit me in the right way. So I loved it. And I think Aronofsky really kind of shows he really is a performance filmmaker at the end of the day. All those stylistic elements he's done in all of his films before, but he grabs performances from actors that you have never seen before, never thought you could see. Yeah. And it's an astounding film. It's just an amazing film. And it also made me think of Moby Dick so much differently now too. It's such a fascinating commentary on that. So
Jacob landed at 7 for you.
Yeah, it was. Excuse me. It was at 7 for me. I think the best kinds of movies are ones that almost sort of make you look at your own life through a different prism, through a different perspective. There's that old saying that, like, you think you're having a bad day and then you hear about someone else's day and then you sort of by comparison you go, okay, all right, well maybe, And this is a guy who has come to accept that his time on this earth is shrinking. The clock is ticking on how much time he has left to quite literally be alive. And the reason he's gotten to that point is because so many terrible things have happened to him that have led him to be in this literally physical position. And yet, in his final days, a man who has had just unspeakable heartbreak and tragedy thrown at him, he spends his final moments on this earth trying to reconcile, trying to make people happy, and with a true, genuine belief that there is goodness out there. Even when the people he believes there is good within may not show him that, he still chooses to believe it. And so I walked away, you know, Kevin and I, you know, we talk about what you walk away with. I just walked away thinking like, God, if this person, who I think I'd like to believe hopefully represents more people out there. I can't honestly say he would represent me, but like can be in this situation and have this stuff thrown at him. And in his final moments on this earth, think, you know what? Like, I still choose to believe you're good. Mm-hmm. I choose to, despite the fact that I've been through shit and you're treating me like shit, I choose to believe that life is good and I choose to believe that people are good. And that's how I'm going to use my final moments on this earth. To me, that's the movie I saw. I know there's, to Kevin's point, I know there's a lot of opinion pieces about this or that or what's represented in the film. I saw a movie about choosing to believe in good and choosing to believe in hope and choosing strength over weakness, and that strength and weakness are not often physical, outwardly qualities in people, but inward qualities in people. And that's the movie I saw when I saw The Whale.
And I'm getting like teary-eyed real quick. I know we have to move on, but like thinking about the way you explained what led him to that physical state, which they cover in the film. But you're what's brilliant about what Aronofsky does in the writing is that you're judging him before you know any of that.
100%.
I mean, you come into the film with your preconceived judgments.
And then doesn't it also give you a moment where you sort of go like, shit, what's to stop that from happening to me?
Right. Mm-hmm. And there's a scene, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. There's a scene where he is just eating. That is so devastating and so hard to watch. And the sound design in that scene, the way that scene is
every
done.
Time you choose is
oh my God. Like,
and there are people who enable him, but there's a reason that they enable him because they're racked with their own guilt with things that have happened to them. So like every aspect of the film is legitimized and qualified. Like everything makes sense to me.
And even if you've never been that heavy in your life, anybody can relate to the idea of eating badly when you feel bad. And the idea of like, you know, obviously the people who eat badly that don't end up becoming that heavy, there's a bit of, I guess, quote unquote, more self-control. But in terms of his situation, what he went through, you understand why he's doing that to himself. Oh, sure. And you obviously don't want him to do it to himself. But depression and mental health and anxiety are so brutally loud in your mind. When your subconscious is 90% of it and the other 10% is your conscious mind, essentially. So if you're reliving horrible memories and depression and anxiety and food makes you feel better for X amount of minutes afterwards, I get why he's doing it, and I think it's just sad. It's so sad because like I want to reach to that screen and be like, man, like let me get you to the hospital. Let me help you out. But really, nobody can save him. He only has the ability to save himself, and he chooses what he wants to do in those remaining days of his life, which is incredible. It's a beautiful film.
I want to point out something that'll be mainly interesting to the blenders. On this year's top 10s, you each put the new Aronofsky ahead of the new Spielberg. And remarkably, I didn't put the new Aronofsky on my list at all. Isn't that nuts? Isn't that stupid?
Sean O'Connell said he was the greatest filmmaker of all time.
And I snubbed him. And the reason I snubbed him is just because, like Jake said earlier, there's more than 10 movies that you can love in a given year. And while I adored all the
I'm surprised The Whale's not on your list.
Yeah, it was on again on the rewatch where I was really moved by all the performances and yet just didn't think that the story warranted inclusion in the top 10. But I see all the things that you guys really loved in it, and it's definitely, you know, would have been in that next tier for me, but didn't quite push it over the top. Jake, you were at number 3.
My number 3 is James Cameron's Avatar: The Way of Water.
Well, there we go. It is time to discuss The Way of Water, which is on Kevin's list at number 7. Yes. 10, 9,
yes.
8, 7.
And not
7 for
on
Kevin,
yours at all?
and nope, didn't make mine. Didn't make it.
Wow.
What? Is that?
Wow.
I thought you were going to say it was your number 3.
Yeah, I did too.
I am shocked that's not on your
Didn't
list.
make it. No, listen.
Wow.
Wow.
It was for a while, and then a few things shifted, And Avatar fell off.
Damn.
Gabe will tell you it's in my honorable mentions. It is in my honorable mentions.
Wow. I've seen this movie twice now, and look, we're talking. I am someone who, I've said this a lot, didn't particularly care for the first Avatar. The first Avatar did not make my top 10 list at all. Didn't even come close to making my top 10 list. I am enamored with this film. I am just. I mean, I even loved it more the second time than I did the first time. In fact, the first time I saw it, I remember thinking like, yeah, like it's fantastic, but like it definitely drags a little bit the second act. But the second time I was able to see it, whenever I was able to sort of step back and realize the entirety of the story that was being told, I realized just how necessary it was to take a beat and explore the world underwater for a little bit, get to know the whales, get to know sort of all
It's
of
important.
the kind of it is very important. And the payoff of several significant moments in the third act don't work as well if you don't take the time to do the things that happen in the second act.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think it may very well be one of, if not the most visually beautiful films I've ever seen. I don't care for 3D. I'm not a 3D guy. I hate wearing the 3D glasses. It normally doesn't do anything for me. There are moments underwater where I just thought, my God, like this is why 3D exists, not
How was
to
your
do these cheap conversions.
Chicago presentation?
My Chicago presentation may have been better than our London presentation.
No kidding,
It
because we
was- I
made
saw
jokes
it-
at the
yeah,
premiere that
was,
we were seeing the most calibrated
My
presentation of it.
presentation was better than London.
Yeah, I saw it at an AMC Dolby,
Wow.
which is the
Damn.
best screen here in Chicago with premier 3D glasses and the
Interesting.
premier seating position. And I remember thinking,
tell
my God, this is
Landau.
better. Yeah, this is just phenomenal. I know we should have had the junket in Chicago, but just, oh my God, it's just what an incredible, beautiful. I mean, like I just got excited when I walked out both times. I find myself excited to tell people to go see it. It's just like, and by like in the third act, you just want to go like, James Cameron, you son of a bitch. Like you
son of a bitch.
You get it. You get like you're back, baby. And I just, not that he ever went anywhere. But I loved Avatar: The Way of Water. And I cannot, all the people who are writing about how it's quote unquote bombing. I can't wait to
What?
see
No one is
how-
saying that realistically.
I was gonna say, so we're recording this on the 19th. This isn't
Yes.
coming out until the 30th. We think it's gonna be over $1 billion by the time this is
I
out.
think
It's
yeah,
actually
it'll
published.
be.
It'll cross a billion by New
What a
Year's.
bomb.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, the adjusted weekend numbers are already up. It's already, I think the adjusted was like 435, and it's already adjusting over
It
440.
has
So like even
zero competition.
Yes.
Until I think
February.
March. I'm not kidding.
Well, is it
There's
Ant-Man?
nothing else
Is it
coming.
Ant-Man in February?
Oh yes, it is. Okay, that's fair. Okay. Where are we at?
This is
Kev.
my number
Oh,
7,
Kev,
right?
Kev.
Oh,
yeah,
7.
yeah.
Yeah, go Kev.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, sentiments that Jake shared. Didn't love the first Avatar. This was, a monumental filmmaking achievement, just in purely in terms of visual spectacle, but also the emotion really is there. I mean, the difference between the first and second one for me is that I genuinely cared about the characters and the storyline. From a filmmaking perspective, it is extraordinary. I mean, I felt like a kid again, like watching T2, just from a perspective of visual jaw dropping. How the hell did they do that kind of thing? And I just found, again, and this is super nerdy to get into, but the technical immersion that he was able to achieve with the 48 frames per second, and the 3D and the Dolby, and it was just, there was an immersion that I had never achieved before as an audience member on that level with 3D. There was just something about the 48 frames that made it so much more immersive, so much more real. I know it sounds crazy because we're in a fictional environment, but I'm telling you, there's scenes in this film from a performance standpoint, especially on Zoe Saldana's particular part. There's a moment where something happens that's devastating to the story, and there's a look on her face that is still shocks me, like the way her eyes open in that moment. It was just, it kind of reminded me of the moment, and this is a very strange comparison. Do you remember the scene in West Side Story when Ansel Elgort learns that Maria's dead? And there's like this shocking paralyzed look on his face, like just like how do you even describe that to somebody? And it was on that level of just like seeing something and hearing something so devastating that your face doesn't even know what to do with that
Oh,
information.
dude, I went numb. I went ice cold. Like I couldn't believe it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I know.
And I think there that scene just sends shivers through my body. But like in terms of the storytelling, you know, I do find that the second act, while I do believe is, you know, a little longer than it needs to be, I do believe the payoff is worth it. That third act is some of the most stunning action I have ever seen put to screen. And you're talking about a guy who, you know, has been pushing boundaries since he first started. Everything he's doing has always been kind of the next level, right? And, you know, T2 to this day, I think looks better than half the films that are out there right now, just in certain sequences. But with Avatar, you know, it was a gigantic jump in emotion, a gigantic jump in technology. This is the reason you go to the theater. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to sound like a PR-y type person here, but this is the type of film. And I want to, can someone look up the name of the composer? Because James Horner, his music, obviously for the first Avatar, those main themes, those horns, they're just beautiful pieces of the Pandora. I think the guy's name is Samuel. I don't want to botch it, but he continued Horner's music, and obviously wrote new to the story as well. But go ahead, Gabe.
Simon Franklin.
Okay. So I wanted to get his name out there because the music in the film is incredible. And to take James Horner's music, who obviously Horner's not with us anymore, and to continue it, but also expand on it and give new characters, new themes, but also keep it in the scope of that. I mean, when you hear those main horns, you know you're in a devastating sequence. When you know a score can cue you like that, that you know where you are emotionally. You know, Cameron's just a master at that. And I want to shout out Stephen Lang because he really does carry these films. Like that performance, he's the villain in the movie, but he's the arc that he has in this one with the spider character and kind of that earned arc that the character Quaritch or whoever he is. What do we know is there a new name for him in this movie?
No, they still call him Quaritch.
Okay,
they still call him Quaritch. Yeah, Colonel Quaritch.
And so I found that to be just a really interesting arc. He had to earn that arc at the end, and he did. And all through performance capture. And then you can't even not discuss the underwater performance capture and the actors performing that for real. So, you know, at the end of the day,
it's really incredible how much of a difference it makes. Like how necessary it was because like it's so immersive that they just look. It doesn't look animated. It doesn't look. Right. It looks like people swimming. It's crazy.
Like look at the shot of Kiri when she's first exploring the water for the first time, and the smile and the wonderment on her face as she's going through that. That is coming through a real performance. Like that is not just some animation. Like there's an act. You know, I'm assuming Sigourney did those sequences, but you know that particular moment to me is a real great look at what the underwater performance capture does. So if you see a character riding a whale or riding a character or some type of animal underwater, that is an actor riding something underwater. And there's just some really cool like GoPro shots of when Jake Sully gets on the creature for the first time. So it's just really well done and very interesting, very immersive, and just really emotional. And it kind of pays homage. Everyone says Titanic. They feel like Titanic at the end of the film, but it's James Cameron. He's kind of paying homage to all of his films.
The end is very much Titanic meets Terminator or Terminator 2. Like it's in the best way.
There's also a lot of aliens in there.
Oh yeah.
A lot of aliens
Abyss
DNA.
And
Oh yeah.
Yeah, stop ripping yourself off, Cameron. When you make something original for a change.
Hey, it's almost like James Cameron.
You might make Sean's top 10 list.
It's almost like James Cameron in his own way made a love letter to James Cameron films that all these other filmmakers have. That's kind of funny.
I'm down for
about it like that.
Kevin described Avatar 2 as the type of movie that you go back to the movie theaters to go see. I want to borrow that exactly from my number 3, which is Babylon. Babylon to me is Hollywood spectacle at its finest. And it was Jake's number 6. And so I'll go first and then I'll toss it to Jake. First off, it's Damien Chazelle. And the way that it is filmed and edited to the musical clock that's in Damien's head is masterful. It's There's so much going on. It's the type of movie that you never really know which direction you want to go. The camera, of course, is going to lead you through some of these magnificent party scenes, some of these magnificent on-set scenes where back in the 1920s, when this takes place, there would be multiple productions that were filming at the same time so that they could rotate crews, and you're doing the sort of fly on the wall type of thing that Damien is allowing you to do and trying to pay attention to all of it. But even though that the movie is supposed to be about Hollywood of the 1920s and the industry trying to shift from the silent films to the talkies, I still think that there's so much commentary inside of this story and this film that everything old is still happening to this day. The things that it says about how somebody can be discovered through the silliest of things that happen. Like there's something that happens at a party, so an actress can't make it to set the next day, and that's how Margot Robbie gets her shot. And then Margot Robbie having the talent to essentially do something just as simple as shedding tears, and a director realizing what type of talent they have. The scene where she has to try to perform with sound for the very first time, and Damien just letting us live in the complications that come with being on a set. And all of us have been lucky enough to be on a set.
Shout out to PJ Byrne in that scene.
He's outstanding. But even just like something as stupid as, a door will open in the back and he turns around to scream at the person who's coming in, and it's the head of the studio. The character arc that Brad Pitt has in Babylon is, I think, one of the toughest ones that he's had to accomplish. And it's wrestling with the fact that everybody in Hollywood, it doesn't matter who you are, your time is limited. And eventually you're going to get to a point where you're just not that person anymore. And for Pitt in particular, he's been lucky enough to extend it far beyond most people normally get to do. But there's a speech given by Gene Smart in the middle of this that, again, I think speaks to every generation of
that speech
Hollywood people, which is essentially there are 1,000 more. She's an entertainment reporter, and she says there are 1,000 more me's that are going to have this exact same conversation with 1,000 more yous. But she reminds him, hey, generations from now, when somebody threads your film through a camera, you're going to be a bright star yet again. You're going to live on. And it's talking about the fact, and Kevin, I'm kind of stunned that this didn't make your top 10, because it cements the fact that when you're put down on film, you're eternal, and to a certain extent, these people were dining off of that, in this industry, and it was decadent. But then Damien also takes you to the underbelly of it, where beneath Los Angeles and beneath the glamour and the glitz and these people who are behaving in a way that no one should, that there's this horrifying side to society that these famous people aren't that far away from joining. And you see it through the eyes of Diego Calva, who is just a terrific tour guide through this incredible, incredible film. Again, I think Damien is one of our sharpest filmmakers. Like the way that he puts a film together is stunning to me. There's a sequence in this movie that had me on the edge of my seat and speaks to something that's really, really fascinating about filmmaking in general, which is there's a German filmmaker who has destroyed all 10 of his cameras, and he needs one camera in order to get the shot that he needs. So he sends Diego Calva's character out to rent a camera really fast. So Diego Calva's character shows up with a place where you can rent the camera from. And they said, look, it's out right now, but it's going to come back in 30 minutes. Well, it doesn't show up until several hours later. And he's sitting there waiting for it. He finally gets the camera. He races back to the set. He hands the camera over to the director. He sets it up and he gets the money shot. The sun is falling at the exact right time. It bathes Brad Pitt and his leading actress in it, and they get the shot that is going to last an eternity. If you step back and think about it, if the camera was returned on time and Diego Calva returned to the set, the German filmmaker would have shot that scene in a completely different light, and it would have looked different, and the movie would have been totally different. And these things that happen on these sets are miracles. They're miracles of timing. You can't predict how they're going to go. You don't, like on a shooting day, how are you going to know if you're going to have the cameras? How are you going to know if you have the film? What if this thing happens at this given time? What if this thing happens at that given time? Go back and listen to Ryan Johnson's interview with us for Glass Onion, and he'll tell you a story about Breaking Bad and how they captured one of the most significant scenes of that entire show. And they got it at the last minute because he forgot they were going to shoot it and they were losing light. And I couldn't stop thinking about that when I was watching Babylon, of the fact that this whole industry that we cover on a weekly basis is a fucking magic trick that probably shouldn't exist.
Tom Hanks told us this.
Yes,
on
he did.
Elvis.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And this whole year, we've seen several reminders of how we make this shit up, kids, as Mr. Tom Hanks would say. And Babylon was a 3-hour love letter to the fact that they did it then, and they're still doing it now.
Also, I know Jake is going to jump in here, but there's a line in that scene that I think is one of the best lines of the year. The scene that Sean's referring to, where the entertainment reporter is talking to Brad Pitt about the end of his career, basically. And she says that the future generations are going to watch the work, as you mentioned, but then she goes, "You will take your last breath before that person takes their first breath."
Yep.
Who's going to watch your work?
Yeah,
and that is
I know.
Insane.
It's eternal.
What a
You're
line.
eternal. Jakey,
Yeah.
number 6 for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a 3-hour movie about how great movies are a miracle, that they come together and that they happen the way they do. Sort of the throwaway line that I've been giving to people, and it oversimplifies the greatness of this movie, but that I've been telling people that this is Damien Chazelle's Boogie Nights, and that it follows a specific era of a specific industry, and how much the change of the industry changes the people within the industry. But instead of the world of porn going from film to VHS in the 70s and the 80s, we're talking about the world of silent films as they progress into talkies. But it's so fascinating because so much about the fact that just example crosses over. You could take it out of film. Like honest to God, and I don't think there's anyone that listens to this podcast that would be offended by this, but I mean, you look at the world of junkets. There are a lot of people that do junkets that are from an old school era, that within the era, social media and a digital platform has been introduced, which has completely revolutionized the way in which we utilize and disperse and the speed in which we do these celebrity interviews and get them out there, and the way we get them out there, and the way that we spread them far and wide. And it's caused some people to be left behind. And it's, I think that's such an interesting example of how universal this story is, that Damien Chazelle can take this very specific story about very specific people, many of whom, most people watching that film will never be on a film set. They'll never understand what it's like to be a star in an industry and be left behind, But a lot of people have been in situations in their lives where something has changed. And either you keep up or you get left behind. And that's what I always love about a great film, that a great film can be about specific moments, specific times, specific people, specific industries. But if it's done right and it's done well, it makes you think about yourself and your world and your friends and your family and your job and the time period in which you live in. And that's what it did for me. I have no, aside from being a fan of film, I have no personal connection to the silent films of the 1920s. My life wasn't affected by the jazz singer, but it made me think about the industry that I'm in. And I think that there are a lot of people, maybe someone, I'm going to throw like someone who works in medical device sales, maybe something happened in their industry where they had to like evolve or get left behind. I think that's what makes a great film. And and the one thing that we learned from Babylon is that great films are a miracle. And Babylon, I think, is a miracle.
Absolutely. All right. This is going to be fun because I think this is one of my predictions. Kevin, your number 2 is
Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Jake, your number 2 is
Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Why don't we all talk about Everything, Everywhere, All at Once?
That's your number 2?
My number 2. Yes, it is.
Wait a second. That means that my number 1 isn't on either of y'all's list.
No,
that really isn't.
No, it's on my list.
I'll kick it off. This is
I see.
a genius film. It's just a genius film. I know that it'll be more rewarding on every rewatch. I feel like I get something new out of it each time that I go back and revisit it. I said this to the Daniels, again, guest of the show, that I'm so thrilled. First, I'm glad I got to see it in a theater. I got to see it at South by Southwest with one of the greatest audiences, but I want to own it because I just want to pause it and just comb the backgrounds. Like, they spend so much time in their production design and their set design, and they clearly have packed in. So it's essentially, to me, it's ADD filmmaking, but in the best way possible. And I really feel horrible for the person who had to be there. What's the term that I'm trying to think of, where you're keeping the continuity, just the keeping the, because there are scenes where, like, you'll cut to Michelle Yeoh, who is in a car, and then someone steps up to the car, and then it cuts away, and then she's in a completely different scene, and you have to bounce around through the multiverse and pay as close attention as you possibly can to it. But the commentary that it has beneath all of this flashy storytelling about a mother and a daughter and their distance, and how it's pulled them apart, and the father who, you know, is overlooked by the people in the family, and the grandfather and the role that he has, and how each of these people throughout the course of this movie shed the perceptions of who they are. Ke Huy Quan has it in the most outstanding scene, which is when he takes off the fanny pack and then uses it to fight off all those guys outside the elevator. It's a movie that is continuously upping the game from scene to scene to scene to scene. And every performance is fantastic. Michelle Yeoh is outstanding. Ke Huy Quan is outstanding. James Wong is outstanding. Stephanie Su is not getting enough conversation for the performances she gives. The movie doesn't work without her. She's a terrific foil for Michelle Yeoh. The way that they jump from all the different versions of her character, and the number of different ways that they can imagine her going on this journey, is absolutely spectacular. And it's funny. It's insightful. It's moving. It's touching. It's Michelle Yeoh. Right. I'm sorry. It does everything. It hits every emotion, and it challenges you and rewards you in equal measure. And I will let Jake go next, because it's a number 2 for all of us. You are muted.
You're muted, Jake.
Sorry. I
Jake
want to
is
make sure.
speechless about this movie.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's just a movie that you watch. I recently rewatched it. I think for the 3rd time on a flight home from London from Avatar. And the more you watch it, I think the more you're almost able to sort of remove yourself, because you've seen the story, you've immersed yourself in the story, and you're able to kind of watch it from an analytical standpoint. Mm-hmm. And then to me, that's when almost the impressiveness of it kicks in, where you just go, how does this exist? And like, quite honestly, like, when I think about a lot of the Oscar categories, there are very few of them where I can't say that it doesn't deserve to win. Like, right. you know, in terms of like editing, how, like, look, there are a lot of great films released, but how do you look at the editing on this film and not say that has to be the most insanely difficult thing? Like that is, yep. And it's not just like, it's not flashy editing for the sake of flashy editing. It is all story. Driven. Yes. And that's the thing. Everything that's a technical marvel about this film, and there's so many different technical marvels about it, all exist to service the story. It's not, look what we can do, because let's be honest, the tools in which they had were very limited. So the fact that they were even able to do the things they were able to do, but the reason they got there is because it was absolutely necessary for them to be able to tell the story they wanted to tell. And the result is one of the most powerful, heart-wrenching, life-affirming stories that we've seen this year. And it's just an unbelievable. If it weren't for my number 1 movie, which it's number 1 for a lot of reasons, in any other year, this likely would have been my number 1, but my number 1's number 1 for a reason. But this one is just, God, if it wins Best Picture, I'll be very happy. I won't be mad about it.
Yeah, and it's all, my number 2, obviously. And I think, mentioned the Daniels. They were on our podcast. We had them on recently. They were phenomenal. A lot of what I want to say, you can find in that interview, just obviously from a technical perspective. But, you mentioned the ADD and the ADHD aspect of it. I remember talking to the Daniels for the television junket, and I said to them, I was like, is it weird that I took away that this was kind of, there was a metaphor about ADHD in here? And he goes, it's actually really interesting. Either Dan or Daniel said, that they were diagnosed with ADHD while writing the script.
Oh, wow.
And I found that to be really interesting, because the movie, to me, I think it means a lot to a lot of people. I mean, there's so many thematics that you can dive into that are relatable to a lot of people around the world. For for me, as I was watching it, you understand all the thematics that are important to everybody else, but you also feel like you're falling off the roller coaster at certain moments. Like you feel like you're about to fall off. And I think they were trying to do was jumbled this idea, at least for me, about how your mind operates. What if this? What if that? What if I did this? What if I made that decision? What if I became that? Or what if I didn't tell that person X, Y, Z? Would my life be different? Would I be a chef? Would I be an actor? Would I, you know what I mean? And we think about that all the time rather than living in our present moment. And I think when the film kind of brings it back into its single lane, where she understands that she does have a great life and that she does have a wonderful existence with, she just doesn't know how to talk to her kid the way she wants to. Or to me, that was that beautiful idea of that presence in life and kind of what you deem important, and stop doing the what ifs. I mean, even the actress version of herself wasn't happy. Or the, so I think it's a fascinating thing. We all want what we don't have, and we all compare ourselves to other people. And at the end of the day, we're actually not living our lives. We're living the life we think we should be living because everybody else is living their lives the way they are living. But they also don't feel 100% happy in the lives that they have because they wish they had your life. I mean, it's pretty wild. I mean, that's literally what the movie,
roller coaster.
It is. It's pretty insane. So I don't wrap this up, but it was a really special film. And then outside of all the emotional stuff, as we mentioned in the interview with the Daniels, and I highly recommend listening to it, the way they use aspect ratios in the film is really narratively driven, very fascinating. One of the best moments, as you mentioned, the fanny pack sequence, when they really go from that 1.85, that tall, to that anamorphic widescreen, like old school fight sequence. It was so cool, and it's all done subconsciously to make you know where you are in the story. But if you notice it, it's kind of more of a plus too as well. You kind of go, oh, this is cool how they're playing with this. So it's wonderful. I mean, and also, Michelle Yeoh, Ki Hoi Kwan. I want to make sure I pronounced his middle name right. Did I get that right? All right, cool. Huh? And also, I just love him in the film, and I'm so excited that he came back for this. Obviously, we know him as Short Round in the Indiana Jones Temple of Doom, and Goonies, and he's Data. Amazing. But in Data,
but he know him as Academy Award winner.
That's true. Probably. He's going to win. And I'm glad you mentioned Stephanie, because I thought she was phenomenal. Everybody in the film, Jamie Lee Curtis, it's just really well done. So I hope Michelle Yeoh wins the Oscar.
It's amazing that we all three of us have gone, and we just now mentioned Jamie Lee Curtis. We haven't talked about The Rocks, The Hot Dog Fingers, The Everything Bagel, Raccacoonie. Like, it's one of those movies where, like, as people mention stuff in it, you're like, oh my God, I totally forgot about that incredible part of that movie. So
I can't believe they made that movie works. It is so insane.
It's so insane. A couple of times. It's a miracle. It's a miracle, as are multiple films on this list. All right, we're going to throw it to an ad break, because on the other side, we're all going to reveal our number one picks of 2022, as well as the collective ReelBlend Top 5. So stay with us. Okay, and we are back. So I'm going to go to Kevin, and I want to read his top 10 leading into his number one. So at 10, he has Clerks 3. 9 is Scream. 8 is The Adam Project. 7 is Avatar: The Way of Water. 6 is The Fabelmans. 5, Top Gun Maverick. 4, Banshees of Inisherin. 3 is The Whale. 2 is Everything Everywhere All at Once. And Kevin's number one film of 2022 is
Jordan Peele's Nope.
Here we go.
And it's so, I've already waxed poetic about on the show about it a lot. But it's a film that when I got out of that film for the first time, it was so overwhelmingly insane that I don't even understand. I don't even remember like coming to a full conclusion. I just knew what I saw was special. But as I kept going back and watching it second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth viewings, you really get an idea of the brilliance. I mean, because I already loved it on the first viewing. What's weird about it is I loved it so much I didn't even know really what I loved about it thematically, because I was so blown away by the production scale and Hoytema's cinematography and Michael Abel's score and Keke Palmer's performance. But as I've dug deeper into it, and I've had a lot of conversations with people about this film that watch it once. They only watch the surface level story from A to B. They don't want to dig deeper into the concepts and the thematics of what he's dealing with. And I understand that, and if you don't want to go to the movies and to work, I get that, and I think a lot of people want to sit back and kind of enjoy films and not have to work through them. And I think surface level, the story is pretty much A to B. You know, like they're trying to capture an image of whatever this alien form is, and that is the basic premise. But underneath all of the sequences are incredibly deep themes about the way we exploit tragedy in this world, a beautiful bond between a brother and sister, how that gets broken and rebonded. And at the same time, this concept of trying to capture everything we do in our lives on film or on camera, and not actually being in the moment. But the exploiting of tragedy, I think, to me, was the thing that hit me the most, because I'd thought about this theme before, obviously, but at the end of the day, the way Jordan drove that home, I just think that that's what the movie's kind of talking about, is like the obsession that we have with tragic incidents and the reason why it becomes entertaining for people, or why we're so obsessed with watching material like that. And look at the way our news leads stories. What is the leading story you look at on the news every day? Someone's been murdered.
If it bleeds, Kevin, it leads.
Right. And Nightcrawler played with this, obviously, this thematic as well with Jake Gyllenhaal. But there was just, and again, I'm taking it beyond the world of Note, because now that I'm viewing the world very differently through the eyes of why we exploit tragedy, why as a media we do. And I think that there's a fascinating thing there. And I think the way that he plays with the unknown and the wanting to film every aspect, and then the idea of digital versus film, and the thematic of the only way they can capture this image is through physical film, and that's what the money shot ends up becoming, is on film, because digital gets shut down as this alien comes by. And then on top of that, just performance-wise, Daniel Kaluuya's performance, it's so understated, but in the best way possible. That guy is probably one of the best actors with eye movement that I've ever seen. If you there's a sequence when he's in the truck as Jean Jacket is above him, and it's just a shot on his face reacting to it all, and it's just his eyes essentially telling you what is going on in that sequence. He has some of the most incredible internal ability as a performer to just nail these scenes in full IMAX, where you're on screen in full incredible high def. On top of that, moving on, like Hoytema shooting on IMAX, the narrative decisions to jump to IMAX, Michael Abels' score. It is just an incredible achievement. It's a masterpiece on so many freaking levels. It's almost hard to describe how brilliant that film is. And Hoytema is amazing. Michael Wincott, last thing I want to say, when he goes into the jean jacket to get that impossible shot, and that camera's going to get spit out and that film's going to get processed at some point, and he died for that incredible shot with his legs going into the jean jacket. It's just, anyways.
He's Quint.
Jake, what do you want to add?
I mean, there's really not much left to add.
Sorry.
Dude, no, dude, it's your number one.
Number one,
it's your number one. Here's what I'll tell you. I mean, in the same way that I oversimplified Babylon by saying that it is Damien Chazelle's Boogie Nights, my elevator pitch for people that this is Jordan Peele's Jaws. Now, granted, that is an oversimplification, because I think all of the things that Kevin said about that movie, I mean, time's going to win with that film. I love this film. I think it is a movie that it's getting some recognition at the end of this year. I think it's popping up on this list, maybe that list, this nomination, that nomination. But I think this is the exact kind of film that we're going to be looking back on in 15, 20, 30 years and going, my God, audiences did not understand the genius. I mean, I think this is the kind of movie that is going to yield think pieces and books and anniversary look backs and I really do. I really do. And I think time, which can be the greatest cheerleader or the greatest, death note for a film. I think time is going to be very, very kind to this film, and because I think this film is one that it does take. Look, Kevin, not everyone has the time to see a film as many times as you do and process it the way you do. So you can't fault audiences for not getting to your level just yet. But over time they will. And I really do think that over time people will start revisiting this film. They'll start, because I think a lot of people went in expecting to see an alien horror film.
Right.
And then kind of paused and went, wait, I'm sorry. What is this about? It's about what? And then once they realize over time that things will start becoming more clear, they'll start thinking about it. They'll start talking to people. I had a buddy of mine at work the other day said, I watched Nope. And but I don't get it. What And I said, well, okay. I said, here's like all the Peele films. Here's what I got out of it. I felt that it's about X and Y and Z.
And then let me guess. He was like, I want to see it again. Right.
He goes, now I kind of want to watch it through that prism. I think a great example is when they're at the fast food restaurant contemplating how they're going to capture, and they don't realize that there's a big fight going on outside. That's such a sort of microcosm example of a lot of the things the film's trying to say, which we're so focused on our own shit that we're not realizing what's going on around us. And if that message can be conveyed in a 90-second clip, imagine the messages that are being conveyed in a 2-hour movie. It's a great film. Time will be on its side, and you will be proven right, Kevin McCarthy.
And one more quick minor thought. I want to mention sound design real fast. When you see the film again, pay attention to how he uses sound design. Specifically when Daniel goes outside at night to tend to the horse and the music starts playing in the house, and then Steven's the character across the way. The sound design is some of the best I've ever heard. And they also shot all those night scenes during the day.
Oh, don't even get me started on that, please.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to Jake Hamilton. Let me read your list. Okay. Jake had The Fabelmans at number 10, Elvis at 9, Nope was at 8, The Whale at 7, Babylon at 6. Jake put X, Ty West's X at number 5. Banshees was also at 4, same as Kevin. He had Avatar 2, The Way of Water at 3. His number 2 film was Everything Everywhere All at Once. And his number 1 film of 2022 is
Top Gun Maverick.
Top Gun Maverick. Well, guess what, Jake?
I'm not allowed to talk about it yet.
Because my number 1 film of 2022 is also Top Gun Maverick.
Now you and I are handcuffed together.
Yes, we are.
Do you want to read your list as well, Sean?
I'll read my list really fast.
Top Gun buddies.
10 is Hustle, 9 is Bardo, 8 is The Fabelmans, 7 is Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, 6 is The Batman, 5 is Emergency, 4 is Glass Onion, 3 is Babylon, 2 is Everything Everywhere All at Once, and my number 1 film is the best film of 2022, Top Gun Maverick, which Kevin also had at 5. So high on his list as well, too. Jake, why don't you start with the reasons why this is the best film of the year?
Well, I just want to give a quick little backstory. So around October or so, I don't know about you guys, is when I kind of start the process of formulating what my top 10 might be, what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And really start kind of looking for like what has the potential to be my number 1. And I kept being drawn back to Top Gun, and I was just like, no, like it can't be Top Gun. Because there was a part of me that was like, I need something with like more oomph to it. I need something with more prestige.
Substance,
I want
like
something. Yeah.
Maybe?
I want something. I want something that it's gonna that's not a big summer blockbuster. I want
Yeah.
And then there was just this moment where I kind of paused and went, no other movie has made me this happy. No other movie has gotten me to go back and revisit it 3 times. I saw it 4 times in theaters because I kept wanting to bring people back to see it. No film had me buy it the day it came out on digital and just put it on in the background. Like occasionally, no film has had me YouTube sequences at work during the day just because I want to see them. No film has gotten me all emotional over the title credits at the end with the Lady Gaga song cutting to all like their fate, so I just sort of paused and went, what the hell is wrong with me? Like, why am I doing? Why am I like, this film is everything that a number 1 film should be for someone. It's made me the most excited I've been about a movies, and the movie going experience in years. Why wouldn't I make it my number 1? So I finally just went, screw it. It's my number 1. It's the exact reason a number 1 movie exists, to yield those sort of feelings from me. Everything about it, I love the visceral, authentic action. I love that it is both a testament to the old school movie star, but also a perfect example of why the movie star needs to exist. I love that it is a foot in the 80s and a foot in 2022. I love that it introduces a new cast, but also recognizes like Tom Cruise is the star of this movie. I think it is probably the most rewatchable film. I'll probably rewatch that movie more in 2023 than I'll probably watch most 2023 movies. I just love it. It has a huge part of my heart. And whenever I think of this year in film and the theatrical experiences and all of us being on an aircraft carrier in San Diego, like to me, like I look back and if I had to encompass my happiness of the theatrical movie going experience in 2022, Top Gun is the personification of where that joy came from.
Well, I understand what you're saying. Like when you're thinking about your all-time top movie of the year, when you're putting a list together, you want something that kind of like pushes the boundaries or reinvents the wheel or,
Sure.
Makes you rethink about how movie making is made. And what Top Gun does is adheres so closely to the proven formula that it does every beat that you expect it to do, but it does it at a 10. It nails every single thing it's supposed to do. And that's why, for me, Everything Everywhere All at Once was my number one for the longest time. Mm-hmm. And Top Gun was going to fall somewhere in the top 5. I wasn't quite sure. And I went back to rewatch it a couple of different times. And like, if you just think about like his interactions with John Hamm, mm-hmm. they are so, exactly what that relationship is. You've seen that relationship a million times, but when it plays so beautifully because it has an understanding of what it is more than, so many other films like that are. It embraces exactly what it is. Ed Harris's character showing up at the beginning to shut down the test is a character we know. We've seen it a million times. And even putting Ed Harris in that part, you're like, that's exactly who I would cast. I would cast Ed Harris in that part. And it's ideal. And the way that they interact with him and the way that he's, just like when I knocked Avatar: The Way of Water down a little bit, it's because when Cameron wrote dialogue for his villains, to me, it seemed a little bit cliched, a little bit heavy handed and a little bit hammy with the Marines, hoo-ah and all that shit. But when Ed Harris says, the future is coming, son, and you're not part of it. And, Tom Cruise says, well, maybe so, sir, but not today. You just stand up and cheer, because you're just all of those lines.
Then you're like, perfect. He's talking about movie stars. He's talking about himself.
He is. And it's just, it's so perfectly calibrated to entertain that you just go along for the ride. It reminds you exactly like Jake said. It's everything you love about movies and movie stars. It's a movie that again shouldn't be this good because it's a legacy sequel, and we've seen so many of these try to come back and force it. All the new people that they brought in are fantastic. It made me like Miles Teller, and nothing makes me like Miles Teller. And I thought he was terrific in it. When they
were you rooting for J.K. Simmons in Whiplash?
Yes, I was. Throw the symbol lower. When they hug at the end, I cried. I literally cried. And it has so many exciting moments. The element, the scene in the middle where Maverick flies the route in under the time that he's supposed to fly it in to show to them that it can be done is one of the greatest scenes of the year, if not of several years. And it's coming. That that's the only thing that has to happen for him to prove how great it is. So, and
I want to push back on like one criticism because I love that people like are coming at this with going like, well, like, the end is just the trench run from Star Wars, to which I always tell, anytime someone tells me that and feel like people like get off on telling me that, I always go, Star Wars is just a recreation of all the stories George Lucas watched. Like, Star Wars isn't the first movie to do Star Wars, right? Like this, right. Yeah. This is what Hollywood does. It takes so many stories that we know and love and gives us kind of like, okay, but what if it were like this sort of thing?
So like, and now we finally have Dune, which is the original.
Now we have Dune.
Yeah. And Luke Skywalker wasn't pulling that many G's. I'm very sorry. When he was flying out of that trench. I have it as my number one. I gave in, like Jake said, and I just said, look, I'm fighting against myself. It's ridiculous.
You and me, baby, we're handcuffed together for a year.
It's so wonderful. And Kev had it as number 5. Kev,
we have to cut our palms and then like press our bloody palms together.
I mean, I love Top Gun Maverick. It's an incredible cinematic achievement in terms of like going to the movies. That was obviously, Kaczynski did a wonderful job from a technical standpoint, obviously with the cameras in the cockpit and the real flying and the very minimal CGI and just the immersion of that. It was one of the most incredible crowd pleasing films I'd ever seen in a film in a movie theater. Cruise is fantastic. Ham is fantastic. Teller is fantastic. Glenn Powell's arc and that shootout, that when he shoots that enemy flight and then like you realize it's him, was so awesome. Because like I kind of felt bad that he was grounded, even though he was kind of like the douchebag. Or I'm gonna say that again. Sorry. 3, 2, 1. I kind of felt bad that he was grounded because he was kind of the jerk to everybody in the film, and essentially he earned that arc. He earned that moment, and I love. Doesn't he go up to Miles Teller before they leave? And says that you're going to do, and like that's kind of like the redemption of that character, that arc. He realizes that Miles is a better pilot, essentially, that can fly for this mission particularly. And then I just love that he got that moment at the end, and it was like really kind of solidified how well they all worked as a team.
Oh, dude!
But yeah, it was wonderful.
The Kilmer scene.
The Kilmer scene. Oh my God.
None of us mentioned it.
I agree with Tarantino. That scene should not have worked, but it was incredible. I rewatched that scene the other night, and I'm like, this should not work, but it does. Like when so Tom Cruise hugs him, it is so. Like I felt like that was Tom Cruise hugging Val Kilmer for real. Like thank you for doing this kind of thing. But the way Kilmer plays that scene. Really, Cruise really obviously carries that scene, and it's all on Cruise's face. Absolutely. But the way Kilmer carries that scene, it's such a great scene, and that scene is so well written and so well done, and it was so great to see Kilmer do it. And that could have not been a great scene. It could have been really poorly written and cheesy, but it worked so well.
Because again, in the formula, it has to end on a joke, right? And it ends on the killer joke.
The best joke.
It's the best. Everything it has to do, it does at a 10. It's incredible. It's incredible.
It's so good. And the IMAX scenes are amazing. I do want to mention we had Joseph Kaczynski on the show for the film. We also had Jordan Peele on for Nope, if you haven't listened to that. We've had a lot of great filmmakers.
I hope he hears this one
this year.
And Joe listens to the show. He told us on the carpet.
Congratulations.
Yes. Congratulations, sir.
And the movie is incredible. And it
Jake
made
and
all
I
of our
loved your
top
movie, and
10s.
Kevin didn't. So
I had it at number 5. I absolutely hated it. Yeah.
All right, let's get to the collective ReelBlend top 5.
So intrigued by this.
It is very fun this year. I will quickly go through this. And kicking off our list, we already start with a tie, which is fun. This has not happened, I think, for a couple years.
Explain how this works real quick, Gabe.
Basically, the higher it is on your list, the more points the movies get. I add up all of your lists, and then whoever has the most points is our movie of the year. Interesting. We go from there.
Oh, X isn't going to make it.
So tied for 4th. Making up the bottom 2 in our top 5 is Babylon.
Okay.
And Nope.
Interesting.
And Nope.
And Nope.
Wow.
Tied for 4th.
Nope made it. I thought it wasn't going to make it.
Jake saved you. Jake saved you, adding it to his list.
Because my 1 gives it weight, right? And then I guess it has less weight on Jake's end, but it still makes it there.
Got you through there.
Let's just call it Nabalon.
Nabalon. At number 3. At number 3, we have the Banshees of Inisherin.
Oh, what?
Yes.
Oh, that sucks.
That's right. Damn it. That's right.
So far, the entire ReelBlend list has been on my list. I'm just throwing it out there.
It is on your list.
I'm good.
I disagree.
At number 2, we have friend of the show, Joe Kaczynski's Top Gun Maverick.
Oh,
interesting.
Yes.
Oh, so everything everywhere gets
at number 1. Beating out Top Gun by 1 point. It was on all of your number 2 slot. Everything, everywhere, all at once.
I don't like that.
I do love that.
I don't understand how.
It makes perfect sense because I have it too.
I would like to lower everything everywhere all at once.
It works this way. It's simple math, Jake. Top Gun Maverick.
I do that from Texas. We don't believe in math.
Top Gun Maverick got 20 points between you and Sean at number 1. but it got 6 points at Kevin's number 5.
Hmm.
Each of your
My
second
fault.
place was worth 9 points, which gave it 27
Damn you,
points.
Kevin McCarthy!
Yeah. Well, no,
7.
you guys all had everything everywhere all at once at 2. It's your fault as well.
Gonna be one.
Yeah, but we all had the everything everywhere all at once
I
at
think
2.
would like to lower everything everywhere all at once.
I think that's
you can't.
beautiful. I think it's beautiful that
Great
everything that was
list.
on your number 2 is our number 1. It makes sense.
In
So
an
yes,
alternate universe, Top Gun's number 1.
ReelBlend's
Nope's number
favorite ReelBlend's favorite movie of 2022 is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay, I'm
I'm
fine
great
with
with
that.
I'm not mad
I'm
at that.
great with that.
No,
I'm
that's
great
terrific.
with that.
Gabe, I know you hate doing this, and then you're probably not even going to answer. But Gabe, you got to give me your favorite. You got to give me your
It's
number
gonna win
one.
Best Picture.
I
this
haven't.
year.
I'd have to think about it. I haven't even thought about it. I'd have to think about
What have
it.
you been doing?
Gabe, come on, off the top
I
of your
don't.
head.
I don't do.
Off the
I don't do
top of your
favorites.
head, what's your favorite?
I mean, Everything
favorites.
Everywhere All at Once is up there. Top Gun Maverick is up there. Babylon is in the running. Which we haven't had our chance to review it yet. We're recording this before we record the episode that comes out before this, which is a little odd. But people,
Can you read our honorable
guess-
mentions?
Sure. The honorable mentions that Sean had were Avatar, Bodies, 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 and The Northman. Jake's honorable mentions were The Batman, Weird, and Glass Onion, which is fun because Kevin's honorable mentions were Weird, Glass Onion, and Prey.
Oh, nice.
Prey's a good one.
I'm going to confess
Prey's
to you
a good
guys, I think the 35-minute video of our upcoming interview with Tom Hanks has a good shot at making my top 10 of the year.
Top 10 movie?
It's that good.
Because it's
Yeah,
that good.
It's that good.
What I'm going to do
good.
is I will just repeat it. Like I'll put it back to back for like 90 minutes so we can
That's
see
what I'm going to do.
in
So
the feature
qualifies.
category for festivals. Yeah.
I'm very happy with our collective list. But on a
think it's
selfish
great.
note, I'm happy that Nope is in there.
Nope's in there,
Just on
baby.
a selfish note. But second of all, I think I actually I like that we collectively that does feel like the number one out of if we all had that at the same number.
Absolutely.
That's pretty, and I really do think that movie's gonna win Best Picture.
Banshees
So,
is
I
too
mean-
high. Too high.
Banshees is not too high, man. Banshees,
high.
you're sleeping on Banshees a little bit. You know what, Sean? I don't want to be
You're
your
the
friend
person
anymore.
I wouldn't want to be.
I
I was just about to
slept
say,
on it.
you're the person I wouldn't want to be friends with.
Yeah,
I
slept
throw
on
my
it.
fingers at you.
don't want to be your friend anymore. We're not gonna tell you why. We just don't want to be your friend anymore.
Before Sean saw Marcel, Avatar was in our top 5.
See,
interesting.
Sean, you can't blame
Yeah.
me for none of this, man.
And
Because I
I
had it
think
on my list.
I'd have to check. I forget what my totals were, but it was either Nope or Babylon that would have dropped out.
Oh,
Probably
see,
both of
I
those
helped
would've
you
done
out.
that.
Marcel moved Nope up. There you go.
I honestly, before Gabe read the ReelBlend Collective, I thought Nope wasn't going to be on it. I'm actually, I think, but that makes sense considering I had it so high.
Yes, it got a lot of points.
Jake. So how many points does Nope get from Jake's number 8?
3 points.
What was it? So I didn't
3
do
points.
that much for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Because if you didn't put it there, it wouldn't be on the top 5.
Nope.
Exactly.
Hey. All right. On that note, let's get
Nope.
out of here.
Chuckle
This is a long
Claw
episode.
again.
Thank you, everybody, for
Whoa!
making
Hang
it this
on.
far.
No,
What?
Sean, you're doing exactly what you should. But we're out of sync here. This is our last show of the year. We got to give a thank you to everyone for listening this year.
Hey.
We really do.
What a year
listen,
we've had.
What
We've
a
had
year. My God.
It's so true.
Thank you to Tom Hanks.
Thank you to every guest who has joined us, essentially.
Particularly those that let us into their homes.
Oh
yes,
my God.
which is
Wait,
which
are
is
we gonna
not,
do
not
a-
one but two?
Yeah.
Are we gonna go over like our favorite interviews of the year? Like, I remember,
Maybe at some point.
We can post our top 5 favorite interview moments on our social media pages, Kev, if you wanted to do that. You wanted to give it
Could
some
do that,
collective
for sure.
thought.
You know,
and then
maybe
just put it on
I'll
your-
do a little. I'll clip them out.
with links
All right.
to the full interviews. See, there you go.
Point
That's
being-
like Del Toro.
Good promotion.
We won't let you guys into
Oh,
our
Del
production
Toro
meeting,
was on
which
our
we're
show.
impromptu. Yes. Thank you all for listening. It's
Yeah.
been another incredible year. And hopefully next year is even cooler. Hopefully we get to meet some of you, see some of you again. No promises, no firm plans that I can point to, but it feels like 2023 we might finally get back to that.
Tom Hanks, we want to come to your house.
Let's wrap on that. Oppenheimer.
Hockey pads.
Oppenheimer.
Tom Hanks' house.